fatal thought impacts, past painful thoughts. In fact, I blast tasteful thoughts and past. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kyusho here, and now, whenever we last left off, quite a bit of things were going on. Now, in the last part, Deku, he was enjoying a day off. He was able to help find and put together a bit more of humanity. Currently, there are 6 captains from 6 different ships who are trying to at least get things going on the planet. They are trying to establish different forms and ideas as to how to run things. And while things are going very well currently, they at least are trying to think long term. Now, with that being said, we do actually at least have the current number of people on the planet. It was just around 7,000. And there are at least 5 ships up in orbit and 1 that is crashed onto the planet or was set down. Now, there are other ships out in space that humanity, they do know where they are. However, it is not really a good idea to move them at the current point. Salvage missions are at least scheduled and in waiting. However, the people, or at least the human, cryopods, they've been taken off. Now, with that being said, we do currently have now. It has been a few months. In fact, it's been a little over a year. And that would currently put us at 8 years since Deku, he left Earth. A little over that time. And Deku right now, he is enjoying some news. He's been told recently that the engineer ship that may have left Earth, they may have found its signal, or at least its pathway, on the complete opposite side of, the system. And that was something that Deku, he was surprised by. His people, they're at least trying to split up and find the ships. And while they all have taken different paths, you do at least have one that was on a path remarkably on trail with the engineer ship. And while it did slightly diverge, eventually it did seem like these 2 paths did reconnect, or at least intersect. And Deku, he was tracking that path, as we do currently have where he's hovering in the atmosphere from where the ship may have landed. And Deku, he is staring down at the planet, and he's wondering what he is going to find down there. As we do currently have where Aki is in the room, and even David. David, he's at least expressing to Deku a few things about what may be going on, since he himself is curious to know what is down there. He knows to Deku, this is very personal. In fact, it's very personal to everybody on this ship. They are ready. They want to take these bastards down for what they did. And they might not show any mercy. And you do actually have where David, he finally does reveal to Deku the project he was working on, as he does go to bring up a vial containing brown glowing liquid, expressing to Deku that he would like to inform him as to something. What is it? Well, Izuku, this container here, it's an experiment I've had long running. It's one I've been calculating and adjusting for the last couple years, ever since we first discovered the goo. What? Yes, it's one that one I am very proud of. The reactions I get to different types of cells is remarkable. And I want to try and test it on the engineers. Give them a taste of their own medicine. Show them exactly what happens when you mess with humanity. I wish to turn their own experiments on themselves. Would that be all right? David, this is... Well, I mean, I don't even know how to say or what even to say to that. Say you'll agree with it. Why? Because I wish to know. I wish to test my experiment. And what better a test subject? Well, they may not be exactly human. They are close enough to us, aren't they? They are close enough to people that I believe any results I do get, they'd be perfect. They'd match exactly to what we would expect. So, you wish to mutate them. Not mutate them. I wish to show them exactly the horrors that they've done. The horrors that they've inflicted upon humanity. Now, David does get a hold of the vial once again, informing Deku to be careful with it. Because he's not exactly too sure if it can react differently with the air. He does know that he put a needle inside of it, and it can be injected. However, it's unknown as to what will happen if it reacts to air. Alright. Deku grabbing this thing from David, as he does go to put it down into his belt. Him walking out of the room and heading to the armory, where he does have some of his gear currently repaired, and some of it has been changed up in material layout. Now, Deku he's currently gearing up, as he's suiting up in some armor and going to make sure he has everything. Wrist blades, his swords, his spear, and, well, his shurikens. Deku, he also does this make sure his plasma caster is there, along with him even going to check a few things with his gauntlets. Now, Deku he does then go to put a whip onto his waist. As whenever he does go to walk onto the brig, he does start to talk to a few people. And many of them they can tell from the way he's dressed, Deku he's ready for a war. And Deku he does start to call out a few names, as some people do start to stand in front of him. And right now Deku, he is well aware as to exactly who these people are. He knows what type of powers some of them do possess. And he knows right now they are going to be needed. As the people who do stand in front of Deku, they actually are some people Deku he does actually know well. He knows them by their names and their quirks. Their powers, they do make them remarkable foes. Even whenever they don't use them, they're still pretty damn powerful. And he needs to rely on them. Deku he's hand-picked them specifically for this mission, since what is going on down there isn't exactly known, and their powers, they should be useful. As we do currently have, whenever Deku and them, they do get on a ship and head down. And Deku does express to them, at least get ready in case they don't return. If they don't receive transmissions from them when they're on the planet, at least be on high alert. If they catch anything leaving the planet without, well, authorization, or if it does start to match and show a different type of ship, open fire on it and at least knock it down to the planet. They don't want these bastards getting away again, since they've spent so much time looking for them. And a lot of people, they at least do go to agree. And we do have our John, he was a bit annoyed. He wanted to go down to the planet. However, that's not exactly going to happen, especially since him and Deku aren't on the same ship. John is in charge of a smaller ship in Deku's fleet. While he is sitting there and staring down at the planet, he is kind of pissed. He's currently at least wearing human military gear, and he is talking to Deku in the comms about exactly why him going down there will be a better choice than one of the people he does currently have on his team. And Deku, he does remark to the man that he needs to stay up in the atmosphere, since his military expertise can be needed. Along with that, he actually is very good at guiding a fleet. So, if Deku does fall here, then he has the authority to lead them back to Prometheus. And he does also at least have the authority to continue the hunt. And John, he does actually don't hear that. If Deku falls in combat, he can temporarily take over. And he's at least been made aware as to what will happen over the next couple years. If he does fall here, he's going to have to go through the yautja trials. And he's even going to have to go through the same one Deku went through to become a predator. And that's something that he's not exactly too sure he can handle. Especially because he does go through those trials a lot through the night. He faces his own mind and he goes against his own demons. Now, we do currently have, whenever Deku, he does follow the pathway down to the planet. And what he does find is very surprising. Whenever him and his people, they do get on the planet, they don't really see a lot. This place seems to be empty. And they do actually at least find the ship. However, there's a bit of a problem. Wherever they find the ship, they find some others. Deku at least going to land down in what can be best described as a docking bay, especially since the roof of it is open and there's at least a derelict spacecraft, well, laying there. And that's something that Deku, he does take notice of, as you do have where he does go to get out and step off the ship, and he's looking around. Him staring at the large, strange spacecraft that is in front of him. These are the things they've been tracking. They don't even seem real. How would you explain this? Alien ships? Like this? It's not possible. Scar. Huh? What is it? Are you alright? You're not focusing properly on the mission. Aki, yeah, I'm sorry. It's just... this wasn't what I was expecting. What were you expecting? Something like the yautja ship, honestly. But these things... I mean, look at them. Those patterns along the wall. Don't they remind you of the xenomorph? Yes, upon closer inspection, they actually do somewhat seem remarkably similar to the walls of a xenomorph nest. It's almost intriguing. Deku walking over. As a few people they are watching and even a scientist on the crew, they are remarking to Deku not to go closer to that unknown vessel, because they don't know if it has security measures still in place. And Deku, whenever he does go to walk over, he does bring his hand up and stare at the wall. As whenever Deku does go to press down something on his gauntlet, you do have where a small needle does pop out. And Deku, he does go to bring it upwards to the wall and somewhat try to slash into it, or stab into it with the needle. However, this material, it is remarkably tough. Since whenever the needle does go to touch the stuff, it doesn't really break or even give a lot of resistance. The stuff shows it's remarkably durable, and Deku does find it to be intriguing. Especially because whenever he did go to touch the wall of the ship, it seemed like the thing started to somewhat move. It seemed to be some sort of organic material. And that's something that Deku, he was actually very intrigued by. Now, we do actually have where Deku and the crew, they are looking around the area. And Deku, he's trying to find out exactly where they could be. As, upon walking through this place a bit more, everybody they are commenting on it. And they are trying to draw their own conclusions. especially since not many of them know what's going on. And we do actually have where Deku, while he's walking through the area, he is talking to a key. Right now, their biomask, they are recording. And Deku and her, they do actually have to maintain a level of professionality even whenever they are alone. These recordings, while they are private to the yautja, they can be accessed in case of emergency. Or if a yautja is seen or is thought to be a bad blood, these recordings can be accessed and used for a trial. And Deku and Aki, they are at least talking normally. At least a bit. While Deku and Aki knowing each other for 8 years and being at least this comfortable in conversation can be considered normal, they are at least trying to make sure they maintain that line there in the sand. Now, Deku and her are walking around. As whenever Deku, he does actually walk around a corner, he does somewhat go to walk past a wall that he does go to stop at, before he does go to turn and look at it. Him asking Aki if she knows why this wall is here. Hmm? I don't exactly get what you're talking about. Hmm? I've been mapping this place out in my head a bit. And, well, our smart disk, they're still scanning the area. Even some of those drones they took off the ship, they're making models of the area as we speak. But this one here, this wall, they're at least going to look down at the ground, telling the key to look at the pattern here. It doesn't match, does it? Hmm? Hmm. The wall is actually slightly inside. Yeah, so that would mean that it's a doorway, right? They're going to bring up his hand. As whenever he does, so he does going to reach out and touch the wall. The moment it does somewhat start to glow a bit. As whenever Deku does going to feel a slight jolt, he does going to pull his hand backwards as the wall does start to just slide open. And Deku does going to talk about how that was unexpected. And everybody else, they do go to hear that. As Deku, he talks about how they might have found something. As Deku and Aki, they do go to walk into an elevator. Now, whenever the elevator shaft does start to move downwards, or the platform they're on does start to move downwards, Deku and Aki, they do get on the offensive. And whenever they do at least find a place to hop off, they are walking around. And it's kind of surprising. There's no signs of life here. So, what do you think we found? I don't know. But whatever it is, it seems empty, doesn't it? I mean, there's no life. Hell, I don't even think I heard any sort of animals, bugs, insects, anything of the sort. I don't think there's any sort of bacteria on this planet. Hmm? Really? Yeah, it's kind of disturbing now that I think about it. Deku is going to walk down a hallway. As whenever he does start to hear something. The moment Deku does, he does actually start to get ready. As whenever him and Aki, they do actually start to try and be a bit more stealthy, they do inform everybody as to what was going on. And Deku and Aki, they do actually start walking towards a corner. As when they do go to activate their invisibility tech, they do disappear. As you do have where the sounds of footsteps, they do start to approach. As Deku and Aki, they do at least stay by the corner and holding the wall. Them very close to each other. And Aki, she's telling Deku that this does not mean anything. It is for the priority of stealth. And Deku, he does go to tell her that he's well aware as to that. And he's not getting any enjoyment out of this either. As Aki, she does know that that is, well, something Deku just have to maintain. The, well, aura of hating a yautja. And while Deku, he doesn't particularly like doing this, he does understand exactly why they need to. As whenever both of them, they are somewhat staring at each other through their biomask and breathing, they do actually go to look towards a giant person walking by. And Deku, the moment he does see them, it does sort of freak him out for a minute, since what he was expecting, this creature in mind, this thing, it's so close to them. And that's where Deku, he actually has to bring up his hand and tell everyone that they got eyes on it. What? Wait, you're seeing an engineer? Yes, I am. And I gotta say, it's pretty creepy. What do they look like? About, what, 8 foot tall? Pure white skin. And they're bald. I didn't see its face. Really? Is it human? I wouldn't say human, but it's got arms and legs like us. Or we've got arms and legs like them. Okay, so I guess it's time to get to work. Deku going to step away from the wall. And Akisha's going to mention Deku that this may not be the only one here. And right now, this thing, it is considered to be a very worthy hunt, since only few carcasses have been retrieved alive with their hunter. Now, Deku, he does hear that, thinking about how this thing he doesn't want to be alive. This thing Deku wants dead. Deku, he wants to rip off its head and put it in its trophy room. Or he might turn it over to David for those experiments. Deku going to reach down towards his waist and grab onto the small vial. As he does go to press a button, and that's something that Deku, he does stare at. This would hurt like hell. And Deku is thinking about just stabbing this thing into its spine, seeing exactly what this stuff could do to him. And Deku, he does relish on that thought for a minute. And Aki, while she can't exactly see Deku's face, she can feel his rage. Her actually going to turn her face away and going to bring her hand up onto Deku's back, as she does go to at least tell Scar to calm down. And Deku does go to someone to take in a breath before going to breathe out, telling her that he'll be quite fine. Scar, approach with caution. Right, I got it. Deku going to move in. As the engineer, it does come to a wall, bring its hand up and go to open the door. As whatever it does walk into a room, and Deku, he does see some other engineers. As he does go to slip in behind the engineer and take cover. As they do start to talk to each other. And Deku, he actually does go to bring his hand up and go to at least turn the recording onto a new one. As he does go to hear the language of the engineers. And Deku does start to somewhat mumble it under his breath. Everyone hearing him at least go to say a few strange phrases and repeat them over and over again, as they're asking Scar exactly what the hell he's doing, and why he's having so much trouble talking. It's their language. What? Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't know what they're saying yet. However, I got my recording going. We'll learn more. So what's the call here? Well, group up. We all need to be together. We're sending you guys our location. And the elevator is down the hall to the left, within the middle part. It's where the circular vein would be. And if I'm correct, we went down maybe almost a mile. Alright. You guys should have your ETA. Yeah. They do at least go to meet up with Deku and Aki. As whenever they do turn on their own stealth equipment and all get here, Deku, he does get ready. He does want to rush in and attack them. Go for a stealthy kill. However, there's a problem with that. If he does that, he'll break the honor code. If he kills an opponent by striking them when they least expect it, a stealthy takedown, they will be null and void. And that's something that Deku he's enraged by. He's angry that he can't take them down the way he wants to. He's angered because no matter what he does here, even if he took them down the way like a yautja, then he still might not be able to get the satisfaction he wants. If he takes them down like a human, if he takes them down by just assassinating them all and picking them off one by one, Deku, he knows that wouldn't be satisfying to him either. He wants to sit these things down and find out exactly why they did what they did to him. Why they did exactly what they did to their people. And Deku, he knows that they may be able to at least capture one or two of them. And that is enough for Deku. As you do actually have where a sound can be heard throughout the room. And many engineers they do go to look around at each other, kind of confused. As you do have where Deku he does go to somewhat stand up and go to at least bring his foot upwards and kick into a large container. This thing being sent flying across the room as an engineer does go to bring their hands up to catch it. As another engineer they do at least go to bring their fingers up and point directly at Deku, them shouting the word intruder in their language. And Deku, he's well aware as to exactly the gesture, the mannerisms, and the way they said that. As he's able to at least base a lot more things off of that simple word. And while it may not exactly be the one he thinks it is, it's damn well close enough. Now, Deku, he does go to rush in. As whenever a few more people they do start to reappear in the room, the engineers they do start to try and at least get things ready. They weren't expecting an attack. And right now, a lot of them, they are trying to gain their bearing. As we do have where Deku does go rush forward towards one, and he does actually meet it in the middle. As the large engineer, it does actually go to try and throw its fist outwards towards Deku, as they do just try to fling him across the room. And Deku he does actually go to dodge it before going to actually bring his hand up and try and punch it upwards with his wrist blades. However, this thing, it does go to bring its hands upwards and go to grab onto Deku's arm, as they're able to stop Deku before they do go to try and pull him upwards into the air, and go to throw him back down. However, the moment they do actually try, you do have where Deku, he does go to wrap his arms around this large arm, and go to try and get it into a hold. The engineer actually trying to bring its hand up and break Deku's grip. However, they are actually surprised at how strong he really is. As we do have where another human, they do come rushing in. And this one, they actually were picked because of their strength, since they're probably the only person stronger than Deku. This person actually coming running in as they do directly go to smash the engineer directly in the gut with their fist. As the engineer does get put on the back foot and go to try and bring its attention away from Deku. This thing trying to swing Deku at this person as they do go to try and dodge out of the way and go to try and grab onto the arm. As they do try to bring a knife upwards to slash the artery in the arm. And the engineer, it does just try to pull backwards with Deku in the way. The guy actually going to drop the blade as his arm just directly smash upwards into Deku. And Deku, the one that does actually happen, he does go to let go, fall onto the ground, and then go to actually turn. Him being able to slice into the engineer's biosuit as it does go to back away. And a lot of the engineers, they actually are on their way to retreating. Some of them are trying to make their way towards the ships. As where that is actually happening, you do have where a few of them they're sent flying backwards because of one thing. A very loud sound. And Deku does actually go to turn. As he does see that Songbird, she is using her quirk. And this is something that Deku he's actually very proud of. As you do actually have where he does go to bring his hands up. As he does start to say a few things in the engineer language. And the engineers they are hearing Deku repeat, well, military plans. And they're wondering if he can speak. As they do at least try to put their attention towards him and talk, Deku he does just go to bring his hands upwards and go to pull something out from behind his back. As in one hand, Deku he does hold his spear. Now, Deku he also does at least go to pull a shuriken out from behind his back. As with his spear and shuriken, he does get ready. Deku, he rushes back in towards the engineer that is currently fighting off the strong man. Now, Deku, he does get to throw a shuriken at the engineer. As the engineer does go to try and dodge, Deku, he does get to thrust his spear out in the other direction. The engineer, noticing that Deku, he's attempting to fake him out. And Deku, whenever the engineer is going to somewhat try and turn his body, him being stabbed with a shuriken, he does go to bring his hands upwards to grab the spear. As he has going to force Deku's arms upwards before he does attempt to try to break Deku's arms. And Deku, when this does actually happen, you do have where he does go to bring up his hands with his wrist gauntlets. Deku going to actually flip his arm in a way that does actually trigger a mechanism. As while the engineer is holding Deku backwards, trying to force his arms backwards, Deku is able to shoot a grappling hook directly upwards into the engineer's cheek. As when it does actually start to retract inwards, Deku, his fist does directly collide with the engineer's head. As Deku, his wrist blades do go right inside. And Deku, after he does go pull back his hand, you do actually have our engineers, they are staring directly over towards him. As Deku and a lot of people, they do remember exactly what they were here for, and the sight they are seeing. As we do currently have the scientist, they are watching on in awe, as, in the best words to describe it, they just watched a god die. And the man staying there, he killed it. As Deku, he does go to look towards the other engineers. Him going to actually bring his hand up and go to fire off the grappling hook in his other hand. And the engineers, they actually are a bit more on the defensive. They don't have any weapons on them. And right now, it is a bit of a bloodbath. They attempt to try to fight. And, well, after a long, drawn-out scuffle, it doesn't end too good. However, you do actually have an engineer, they were able to get past the defenses and run. Especially because, right now, they're booking into the armory and we do currently have Deku. Deku, Aki, and everybody else, they're chasing after the engineer. It wasn't accounted for in the numbers. And Deku, whenever he does go to run into a room, he does directly get attacked by the engineer. As it does go to bring his hands up and go to grab Deku. Them actually throwing Deku directly into the wall, as Deku does try to bring his leg upwards to kick the engineer. Him actually being able to kick it away with surprising force. And the engineer, as it does go to back away, it actually does try to ask Deku a few questions. It talking its language, and Deku, he does go to somewhat turn his head, surprised. As he does go to bring his hand up and press a button. As it does play back what the engineer just said. And the engineer, it actually has somewhat go to grit his teeth and get annoyed. As he has tried to rush at Deku. And we do currently have Deku. Deku, he does actually go to back away and dodge. As he's reading the engineer's movements. He's moving like a brawler. And clearly, while he may be a military personnel, he doesn't exactly have proper access to training. Not the type Deku and his people have been through. And Deku, he does start to speak in yautja, asking the engineer if it can understand him. And the engineer, while it doesn't understand Deku completely, the study of the yautja species is one I believe they would have done very extensively. Especially because of how long the engineers and the yautja have both been alive. Now, the engineer, it is kind of confused. However, you do actually have where Aki just come rushing in. As when the engineer it does try to attempt to grab towards Deku, it actually does have an arrow shoot directly through his hand. And after that does actually happen, the engineer does go to turn and stare at Aki. As Aki, she's staying there with a hunter's bow, and was to pull back another arrow. As when she does this time, you do actually have the engineer, who does go to reach out and grab towards Deku. Deku attempting to dodge. However, the engineer does go to grab Deku's plasma caster and rip it off. As Deku, when he does see that, he does go to bring his hand upwards and directly punch upwards into the engineer's hand. And the engineer, it does just go to bring his hand backwards and punching directly at Deku. Deku brings his hands up to block, as his gauntlets they do take the brunt of it. However, Deku he sends smashing backwards through the air and into the ground. As whenever Deku does hit the ground, he does somewhat feel something sharp, as he does get to look down and see the needle that David gave him. He does get to reach down and grab this thing, him bring it up and stare directly at it, as he thinks that this thing it might have pricked him. However, he's not exactly too sure. He looks down and does see that there is some blood on him. However, there's none from the wound this large needle could have made. And Deku he does think, this thing is the last one left alive, and right now it could be good to expose it to this chemical. And Deku he does go rushing forwards, as he does try to ask Aki for some backup. And Aki she actually has to bring her bow away and rush in. Her bring out her blades as she does rush in for the attack. And we do currently have where Deku and Aki, they do try to go back and forth with this engineer, as everybody they do come running in and see what's going on. Some of them they do want to rush in and go for the attack. However, Deku does talk about how they're taking this thing on in combat. And right now, if they do engage it, it will not be a good thing, as the engineer is trying to hold off Deku and dodge Aki. Deku, he does have some good strength on him. In fact, the engineer is very impressed with him. He is most likely the strongest human he's ever seen, aside from the other ones in Deku's hunting party. And you do actually have the yautja who's currently here. He remembers them being bigger and stronger. However, this one, it does have such agility and speed. It is rather impressive. And we do actually have where Aki she has to slash upwards the engineer's biosuit, as she has to try and reach outwards for the face. As whenever the engineer does go cock back his body, he does go to bring up his hand, as he does go to aim for Aki's biomask. And Deku, he does see that, as he does go to somewhat leap out in front of her and go to try and block the engineer's attack with his own fist. As Deku, the moment he does actually bring back his fist, he does actually go to throw the wrong one forwards. And Deku, he doesn't even realize it, as in the palm of his hand was the needle, and the vial contained the strange brown liquid. As whenever Deku and the engineer they do go to clash, Deku, he does go to somewhat feel this thing shatter in his palm, as brown smoke does encase the three. And the engineer, whenever Deku and him they do go to clash fist, he does go to bring up his other hand. Him actually somewhat going to grab Deku by his face and start to squeeze down the mask. As Deku, the moment that does actually happen, he does go to bring his hand upwards towards his throat. As Aki, she does actually somewhat turn and go to bring up her hands. Her immediately going to grab towards Deku's back and grab his scythe. As whenever she does go to somewhat turn it on, she does go to swing for the engineer's arm. And the engineer, after its arm is severed, it is going to back away and somewhat look down, it screaming out in pain as it is coughing. And Aki, she is actually going to bring up her hand and grab her biomask. Her going to grab Deku's and force hers on top of his face, as she starts to breathe in this strange liquid, or this strange mist. Now, Deku, he actually is falling backwards, and he does feel his vision going hazy. However, you did actually have where, in the final moments before he did pass out, his eyes were looking directly at Aki, and he saw the look on her face. As Deku, he tried to repeat some words, but he couldn't really get them out. And Aki should just try to tell Scar that it's fine, or at least going to say something that would break the character these two have built up. Now, you do actually have the engineer. Whenever Deku, he did go to collapse, and Aki, she did go to somewhat turn back to the engineer to reveal her face, she was trying to breathe. The air down here is strangely thin, and while it is adjusted for an atmosphere that the engineers can breathe, the humans, they might have more trouble, and there is currently at least her species. She does feel this strange, mist fill her lungs, and she doesn't exactly know what this stuff could do to them. However, right now, she had to save Scar. She had to save her beloved. And if that does mean that there's some weird experiment that will be performed on them, then David will most likely know how to reverse it. And you do actually have the engineer. He's confused. He does get to bring up his other arm. Himele is going to try and shout and ask her exactly why she would do such a thing for another species, as it does get to repeat that her species is violent. Her species are warmongers. Her species, they are exterminators. And Aki, she's going to step forwards as she's going to bring up the scythe, as she's going to scream out that she will not let him harm her beloved. Now, Aki, she's going to slash away at the engineer with her scythe, as she's going to kill it. And everybody else, they are trying to focus on Deku. Right now, Deku, he's laying on the ground lifeless. And he is not in good shape. And you do at least have the scientist who they do come running over. Whenever they did go to get to a key, you did actually have where she did go to someone start having some strange things happen. Her body did start to at least glow with strange lines across her face. And the doctor, they thought that it could have been her veins reacting to whatever David he engineered. And you do actually have where she was taken back. On the way, she did go to collapse and pass out, and an evac was called. Now, with that being said, Deku and Aki would both be rushed to the medbay, since they're not exactly too sure what could have happened. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys in the next part.